You're watching Story Scroll. Real stories, raw emotions, and endings you'll never forget. Let's scroll into today's tale.
Original post. I never thought I'd be the one writing one of these posts. I used to read them out of boredom, thinking, thank God that's not my life. Turns out life has a sense of humor. My wife and I have been together for 10 years. Married for most of that. We met when we were both broke, living in a tiny one-bedroom apartment where the heater barely worked and the neighbors argued at 2 a.m. We built everything together. New jobs, better pay, eventually a house. Weekend grocery runs, Sunday laundry, inside jokes that only made sense to us. It wasn't flashy, but it was solid. I thought that was the point. We didn't fight much. Nos criamos matches, nos cheating escares, no dramatic ultimatums. If anything, people joked that we were boring. I took that as a compliment. Stable. Safe. Trust was never something I questioned. I would have bet my life on her loyalty without a second thought. She works in a client-facing profession. Lots of networking, meetings, and one-on-one sessions. I won't get too specific, but her job requires charm and confidence. A few months ago, she started mentioning one client more than the others. Let's call him Mark. Successful, flashy, always traveling, always so funny. She'd tell me stories about his jokes, his lifestyle, how different he was from her usual clients. I didn't think much of it. I trusted her. I trusted us. If anything, I was proud that she was doing well at work. That's when the little changes started. Subtle at first. She began staying later than usual. Started caring more about her appearance. New clothes, new makeup, gym sessions that suddenly mattered. Again, I told myself I was being paranoid. People change. Life moves. Then came the phone. Her phone was suddenly glued to her hand. Always face down. Always locked. If I walked into a room, conversations would abruptly stop. When I casually asked who she was texting, she'd snap that I was being nosy. That hurt, but I brushed it off. I didn't want to be that husband. Around the same time, she started criticizing me in ways she never had before. You're so predictable. You never surprise me anymore. Everything with you is just routine. At first, I laughed it off. We've been together a decade. Of course we have routines. But she wasn't joking. She pulled away physically too. Less affection. Less warmth. Like I was a roommate she tolerated, not a partner she loved. I still didn't connect the dots. The discovery didn't happen the way people imagine. No dramatic phone grab or confession under tears. It was stupidly ordinary. One evening, she asked me to grab something from her bag while she was in the shower. Her phone lit up with a message preview. I wasn't snooping, I swear that, but my eyes caught one word before I could look away. Whipped cream. At first, my brain didn't process it. Then another message came through. Same sender. Same tone. Playful. Flirty. Wrong. I shouldn't have, but I opened the phone. My hand was shaking so badly I almost dropped it. The messages weren't graphic, but they didn't need to be. The tone said everything. Inside jokes. Late night planning. References to things that had no place in a professional relationship or a marriage. That stupid phrase, whipped cream, kept coming up. Like a joke between them. Like a symbol of something intimate that wasn't mine anymore. That was the moment I knew. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This wasn't a one-time lapse. This was ongoing. Intentional. When she came out of the shower, I was sitting on the edge of the bed holding her phone. She froze. At first, she denied it. Said I was misinterpreting things. That I was jumping to conclusions. When I started quoting messages, her face changed. The denial turned into minimization. It was just fun. It didn't mean anything. It was only flirting. Then came the blame. She said our marriage had become boring. That I was safe, but not exciting. That she felt like she was stuck in a routine instead of a romance. She said she needed to feel desired again, like she was more than someone's wife going through the motions. I asked her if 10 years together really meant less than whatever thrill she was chasing. She didn't answer. I don't remember much after that. I remember feeling like the ground disappeared beneath me. Like everything I believed about my life had been a lie. I felt stupid for trusting so easily. Angry that something so cheap could outweigh a decade of loyalty. Humiliated that while I was planning our future, she was sharing inside jokes and fantasies with someone else. What hurts the most is how disposable it all seemed. Our home, our history, all traded for attention and excitement. I don't know what happens next. I don't even know who I am without the life I thought I had. So I'm asking strangers on the internet because I genuinely don't know the answer. How do you process losing 10 years of your life to something so stupid? Update 1. I didn't expect my original post to get as much attention as it did. I read every comment, supportive, harsh, and everything in between. A lot of you said the same thing. What happens next is where it really matters. You were right. The night after I confronted my wife, I didn't sleep at all. I stared at the ceiling, replaying 10 years of memories, trying to figure out which ones were real and which ones were lies. By morning, something in me shifted. The shock faded, and anger took its place. Not the explosive kind, but the cold, steady kind that forces clarity. I moved into the guest room that same day. I told her we needed space and that we'd only communicate about practical things, bills, the house logistics. No emotional talks. No, we need to talk about us conversations. She didn't like that. She oscillated wildly between guilt and defensiveness. One moment she was crying, apologizing, saying she'd ruined everything. The next she was snapping at me, saying I was being cruel, distant, punishing her. I realized quickly that she wasn't upset about what she'd done. She was upset that she was facing consequences. Over the next week, the truth started leaking out in pieces. At first, she'd said it was a few weeks. Then it became a couple of months. Eventually, after I stopped reacting emotionally and just listened, the real timeline emerged. The affair had been going on for months. Not a drunken mistake. Not a moment of weakness. A pattern. She admitted that the client, yes, that client, had encouraged secrecy. He liked the thrill of it, the stolen time, the excitement of doing something forbidden. He told her she was different, that she deserved more than a predictable life. Hearing her repeat his words made my stomach turn. She also admitted something else, something brutally honest. She liked how it made her feel. Desired. Special. Chosen. It wasn't about love. It wasn't even about sex, not really. It was about validation. About feeding an ego that no amount of stability or loyalty could satisfy. That realization hurt more than anything. Our marriage hadn't been lacking passion. It had been lacking novelty, and she chose novelty over commitment. Once I understood that, something snapped into place for me. I stopped seeing myself as the problem. Quietly, without telling her, I contacted a lawyer. I didn't want revenge. I wanted information. I needed to know where I stood. That meeting was sobering. I learned how vulnerable I'd been financially without realizing it. She had spent money during the affair. Gifts, dinners, trips she claimed were work-related. Nothing extravagant on its own, but enough to paint a picture. I started documenting everything. Messages, dates, expenses. Not because I wanted to destroy her, but because I finally understood that no one was going to protect my future except me. Around this time, the fantasy she'd been living in began to collapse. The client didn't want a relationship. When things started getting messy, when she hinted at leaving me, when emotions entered the picture, he backed off. Suddenly, he was busy. Suddenly, he didn't want drama. He hadn't signed up to be someone's second act after a divorce. She came home one night looking hollow. No anger, no defensiveness, just fear. That's when she broke. Panic attacks, uncontrollable crying, begging me not to give up on us. She said she never meant to lose me, that she didn't think things would go this far, that it was just physical and meant nothing. I listened, calmly, and for the first time, I didn't feel pulled back in. Because if it meant nothing, why had it cost everything? I started therapy, not because I was broken, but because I didn't want to become bitter. I went back to the gym consistently. Reconnected with friends I'd slowly drifted away from while building a married life. I talked. I vented. I laughed for the first time in weeks. What I learned shocked me. I wasn't boring. I was dependable. I wasn't predictable. I was consistent. I had been carrying most of the emotional weight of the marriage while she chased excitement elsewhere. Stability wasn't the problem. Disrespect was. One evening, she asked me through tears if we could start fresh. If we could pretend the last few months never happened. I told her no. I told her trust doesn't reset just because regret shows up late. I told her that love isn't proven by words spoken after consequences arrive. A few days later, I filed for divorce. She was stunned. She genuinely believed that if she cried hard enough, apologized sincerely enough, I would fold. That 10 years meant I had to forgive. What she didn't understand was that 10 years also meant I finally knew my worth. I'm not healed, not even close, but I'm clear. She gambled our marriage for a thrill and lost. Final update. This will likely be my last update. Not because everything is magically fixed, but because this chapter of my life is finally closing. And for the first time in a long while, I feel at peace. The divorce is nearly complete. All that's left are a few signatures and final filings. The settlement was fair, not generous, not cruel, just clean. We split what we built together, and I walked away without trying to win. I didn't want revenge. I didn't want to punish her. I wanted out with my dignity intact. And that, it turns out, was punishment enough. The man she risked everything for is gone. Not slowly fading, gone. New city, new job, new life. He stopped responding months ago. No cloche, no explanations, just silence, the kind that echoes. Her professional reputation took a hit too. Nothing dramatic or public, but people talk. Clients notice when boundaries blur. Opportunities quietly disappear. The same charm that once made her feel powerful now feels hollow when it's no longer enough to hold anything together. Financially, she's struggling. The lifestyle she tasted during the affair evaporated, and the reality she returned to is smaller, lonelier, and far less forgiving. The house is too quiet now. The future she assumed would always be there isn't. She reaches out more than I'd like. Sometimes it's practical, paperwork, accounts, logistics. Other times it's nostalgia disguised as concern. Do you remember our first apartment? I passed that cafe we used to love. I didn't realize how good we had it. I don't respond to those messages. The final confrontation happened a few weeks ago when we met to finalize some documents. She looked different. Not older, just worn. Like someone who ran hard after something shiny and realized too late it was worthless. She didn't blame me this time. No talk of boredom. No accusations. Just honesty. She said she threw away stability for validation. That she mistook excitement for happiness. That she missed us, the quiet nights, the routines, the safety she once resented. I listened. I really did. Then I told her something she needed to hear. I told her love isn't proven by regret. It's proven by restraint. By choosing your partner, even when temptation shows up dressed as excitement. I told her that trust, once broken like that, doesn't regenerate. It dies. I wished her well, genuinely, and I walked away. My life now is quieter, but in a good way. I wake up without tension in my chest. I don't check anyone else's phone. I don't question my worth. I've rebuilt routines that are mine alone. Gym in the mornings. Work I'm proud of. Friends who remind me who I was before I started shrinking myself to keep a marriage comfortable. I've gone on a few dates. Nothing serious yet. I'm not rushing. I've learned that peace is worth more than chemistry. Most importantly, I've rediscovered something I didn't realize I'd lost: respect for myself. Looking back, I understand something clearly now. The affair wasn't about passion. It wasn't about sex. It was about emptiness, about chasing a feeling instead of building a life. Our marriage didn't fail because it was boring. It failed because one partner chose ego over loyalty. So this is where I leave things. Not bitter, not broken, just wiser. She traded 10 years of love for a moment of excitement. I kept my dignity, and that was the better deal.
Thanks for watching Story Scroll. Hit that bell and stay tuned for the next story that will move your heart.